Hosting the Olympics comes with a hefty price tag, but is holding the world's biggest sporting event worth the investment from host cities?
Getting ready for the world's biggest sporting event is a massive task for host cities. There's a lot to plan, build and organise. It all comes with a hefty price tag. But is hosting the Olympics and Paralympics really worth it all? The games are certainly expensive. Just bidding to be a host can cost vast amounts of money. Tokyo spent as much as $150 million on its failed 2016 bid, and then half that much again on its successful pitch. Tokyo's final budget stands at more than $15 billion. It's reportedly set to be the most costly summer games ever, though past events didn't come cheap either. According to one study, the average sport-related cost of hosting the Olympic Games between 2007 and 2016 was $12 billion. And over the past decades, host cities have always ended up spending more than planned, much more. In Greece, the cost of the 2004 Olympics in Athens has been blamed for contributing to the country's later economic crisis, and the 1976 Games left Montreal laden with debt which took decades to pay off. But of course, the Olympics make a lot of money too. There are substantial revenues from TV deals and sponsorships for the International Olympic Committee, almost $6 billion from recent summer and winter games, funding sports and future games. The host cities themselves hope to see economic gains from things like job creation, from tourism and investments in infrastructure and sports facilities. Redevelopment for the Barcelona Games in 1992 has often been credited with helping to turn the city into one of Europe's most popular destinations. But during the 2012 London Olympics and Paralympics, there were actually fewer international visitors to the UK overall compared to the year before. But while tourists come and go, many of the buildings and sporting facilities are here to stay. In London, the Olympic Stadium in Stratford is now West Ham United's football ground. Rio de Janeiro's Olympic Park hosts events like music festivals and esports tournaments. But parts of it have been criticised for being poorly maintained, and Olympic sporting venues elsewhere have fallen into disrepair. In Athens, some Olympic facilities were unused and overgrown just 10 years after the Games. This can take a heavy toll on the environment, and critics point out the construction of new Olympic sites every few years is not environmentally sustainable. Back in Japan, the Tokyo 2020 Games have also had to deal with the burden of a global pandemic, which has added billions in additional costs. Revenues are likely taking a hit because stadiums won't be full and international spectators are unable to attend. Even without the effects of a pandemic, after all the spending, economists are generally sceptical about whether hosting the Olympics improves a city's economic prospects. And so fewer cities have been putting themselves forward as future hosts, and some are now calling for the Games to have a permanent home. But let's be clear, not everything can be measured neatly in numbers. There's the pride of hosting the world's largest sporting event and the prestige that brings for a city. The Olympics and Paralympics, after all, are about more than just money.
Wildfires have razed hundreds of thousands of hectares in Russia's Siberia amid a combination of abnormally warm weather and droughts. More from CNN.
Russia's military has been sent to fight wildfires in one of the coldest places on Earth. More than 2.5 million hectares have burned in Siberia so far this year. CNN's Kim Brunhuber reports.
From high above, Russian military aircraft dump hundreds of tons of water on the angry flames below. They're in a battle against wildfires now ravaging northeastern Siberia. In an area more accustomed to Arctic temperatures, residents are facing enormous blazes and thawing land that's been frozen for centuries. Rising temperatures and suffocating smoke are driving residents and firefighters to dig trenches to keep the fire away from their homes and fields, but the smog has already covered over 50 settlements, disrupting daily life. The situation is particularly dire for the elderly and COVID-19 patients. Many are feeling hopeless and scared.
It's frightening. Smoke every day, just every day. Only today we have a little sun.
Abnormally high temperatures, drought, and strong winds have worsened the spread of the fire, according to media reports. People in northeastern Siberia rely on these forests. When it burns, verdant woods turn into swamps, and the flammable, dry undergrowth releases long-stored carbon into the air.
The fire hazard situation has sharply worsened almost all over the country due to the abnormal heat. The situation in Yakutia is the most difficult.
So far, flames have ripped through hundreds of thousands of hectares of Russian forest. Firefighters on the ground and in the air are trying to extinguish the blazes and stop them from spreading, but the thick smoke cuts off visibility.
Fire is massive. We extinguish it in one place, it ignites in another. It is very hot weather. The wind is still strong, fanning the fire quickly, but we are coping.
What is one of the coldest places on Earth has now become one of the fastest warming regions. Scientists say that while occasional forest fires are natural, forests in North America and Russia are burning at unprecedented rates.
What's common to these fires in Russia and also in North America is that right now they're really occurring in places where there are heat wave conditions, there are long-standing drought conditions, and these things all feed into what we call the flammability of the fuel.
As a changing climate wreaks havoc, another population has been forced to reckon with a warming world. Kim Brunhuber, CNN.
Let's go to Derek Van Dam, CNN meteorologist, with more on the situation with these rising temperatures and what we can expect.
Yeah, Kim was talking about how the Arctic is warming faster than the rest of the planet. Well, the Arctic Monitoring Program, we've just summarized some of their findings here. They found actually that the Arctic has warmed 3 times as fast as the global average temperature. That was between basically a 50-year period, 1971 to 2019. So that is a hot spot for global climate change in the northern half of our planet. Now, this is amongst the backdrop of several areas of the world that have wildfires burning out of control. Siberia, you saw just a moment ago, the western U.S., 78 large active fires ongoing throughout that area, including the 4th largest wildfire in Oregon's state history. We're talking over 160,000 hectares burned, only 38% containment, which is good because they are starting to make some grounds on this fire. The weather has turned slightly cooler, the winds have dropped, so there has been some improvement, but nonetheless, there is still a significant amount of smoke billowing from these forest fires, including the Bootleg Fire across central Oregon. And why am I showing a picture of the Statue of Liberty? Well, it's because it's shrouded in cloud from the smoke over the western parts of the U.S. and Southern California. It gets lofted into the upper levels of the atmosphere, transported across continents, and impacts places like the East Coast. The good news is the East Coast is going to clear out today. Bad news is that the forest fires still are billowing that smoke, and that's going to help create hazy conditions and also dangerous conditions for people from Minneapolis all the way to Chicago and Indianapolis. In fact, if you just look at the size of combustion particles, such as smoke and the pollution that we emit from our vehicles, it's about 2.5 microns in diameter. That is significantly smaller than the diameter of your human hair. So it has the ability to lodge itself deep within our lungs. That's why people with respiratory problems have issues with smog and smoke. You can see the poor air quality across much of the U.S. We are at our highest level of wildfire alert level across the western U.S. in over a decade. John?
Yeah, and that smog is so fine it can make it through most of those face masks that people wear, so it's a real problem.
That's correct.
Derek, thank you.
Right.
Appreciate it. Well, from fires and floods to this, it's a dust devil. It was the problem in Bolivia. Players were caught by surprise as it rolled in during a local football match on Tuesday. No reports of anyone being hurt or there was any damage as well. Dust devils, though, are small whirlwinds that pick up debris and dust. They're often mistaken for tornadoes.
Stay with us. The latest weather forecast is coming up after the break.